Have you ever looked at someone who seems calm on the outside, but you just know there's a storm of strength and emotion beneath the surface? Someone who carries the weight of others without asking for anything in return? Someone who builds in silence, but leaves behind something unshakable? That's Capricorn. Most people think they're cold, too serious, maybe even distant. But what if I told you, those traits are just the armor? And behind that armor lives one of the most emotionally complex, loyal, and quietly powerful souls of the entire zodiac? This video is not just about Capricorn as a sign. It's about understanding a kind of strength that's rarely talked about. The kind that doesn't need attention, because it's too busy building something real. Whether you're a Capricorn, love one, or simply want to understand people at a deeper level, this is for you. We're diving into 18 hidden truths that reveal the heart, mind, and soul of Capricorn. Truths that might even reflect a part of you. If this sounds like something your heart wants to hear, take a second to subscribe, like, or share with someone who needs this message. Now, let's begin. Because once you understand Capricorn, you may never see strength the same way again. There's something powerful about people who don't show everything on the surface. You know the type. The one who stays calm when others panic. The one who listens more than they speak. The one who seems like they have it all under control, even when life gets messy. That's the energy Capricorn carries. At first glance, Capricorns might come across as serious, maybe even distant. But behind that calm, quiet exterior lies a depth most people never get to see. Not because it's not there, but because Capricorn doesn't offer it easily. They protect their emotions the way others protect their valuables, carefully, intentionally, and only to those who truly earn their trust. What many don't realize is that this emotional restraint isn't a lack of feeling. It's actually the opposite. Capricorns feel deeply. They just choose not to let their emotions run wild. They've learned, often through hard experiences, that losing control rarely leads to progress. So instead of reacting, they pause. They reflect. They think before they speak. It's not about being cold. It's about being wise. But that doesn't mean they don't long for connection. Capricorns crave intimacy, not the kind that comes from casual conversation, but the kind that's built slowly, brick by brick. They want someone who doesn't rush them. Someone who stays long enough to earn the key to that carefully locked heart. And when that trust is finally given, it's solid. Capricorn doesn't love halfway. They love with commitment, with consistency, with quiet acts that say, I'm here, no matter what. Think about someone in your life who's always shown up for you, maybe not with grand gestures or dramatic words, but with presence, with steadiness. Maybe they've driven across town just to help you move. Maybe they're the friend who never forgets your birthday, even if they don't make a big deal out of it. That's Capricorn love. It's not loud, but it's lasting. This ability to hold space, to feel deeply but not be overwhelmed, is rare. And it gives Capricorns a quiet strength that makes them incredibly grounded in emotional storms. They're the ones people call when things fall apart. Not because they have all the answers, but because they know how to listen without judgment. They know how to be calm when others need it most. And they know how to gently guide people back to themselves. If you've ever sat in silence with someone who just gets you without needing you to explain, you've felt the presence of a Capricorn spirit. And here's the truth, they don't just bring that to others. They use it on themselves too. When life knocks them down, and believe me, it does, they don't crumble. They retreat, reflect, and rebuild. They don't waste energy on drama. They focus on the next step forward. That's the gift of emotional containment, not suppression, but strength. Not denial, but discipline. And a big part of that strength comes from something most people take for granted, solitude. Capricorn doesn't fear being alone. In fact, they need it. It's in the quiet that they hear their own voice. It's in the stillness that they make their plans, tend to their wounds, and recenter themselves. They use solitude like others use therapy, as a space to realign, recharge, and remember who they are. They're not hiding from the world. They're preparing to face it again, with more clarity and purpose. We live in a world that praises constant connection. Notifications, messages, noise, movement. But Capricorn teaches us the beauty of retreat, the power of going inward, and the courage it takes to grow in silence. If you're someone who feels drained by too much stimulation, or if you've ever been told you're too quiet, too serious, or too private, maybe you've been living in your Capricorn energy all along. Maybe what you need isn't more noise, but more stillness, more truth, more space to be fully yourself without the pressure to explain. Because when Capricorns return from solitude, they come back stronger, more focused, more intentional, and they carry a vision that's clearer than before. That's why they're not the type to rush into things. They understand that what's built quickly often falls apart just as fast. So they take their time. In relationships, in decisions, in everything. They know that what's real, what's truly meaningful, takes patience, takes presence, takes work. And that brings us to one of their most beautiful traits: they don't confuse love with fantasy. They know that love isn't always fireworks and butterflies. Sometimes it's showing up on the hard days. Sometimes it's listening when you don't have the answers. Sometimes it's holding space when the other person falls apart, and not walking away. Capricorn doesn't chase perfect love. They build steady love. And in a world that glamorizes chaos and intensity, that kind of love is revolutionary. So if you're with a Capricorn, or if you're one, know this: your silence holds wisdom. Your restraint holds strength. Your love holds depth. And sometimes, the ones who say the least, are the ones who feel the most. There's a quiet kind of fire inside Capricorn that most people don't see. They don't shout about their goals. They don't make big announcements when they're about to do something huge. They just do the work, day by day, brick by brick. And before you know it, they've built something solid, something real. That's because Capricorns don't chase overnight success. They're not here for the quick win. They understand that anything truly worth having takes time, effort, and patience. And they're willing to put in the work, even when no one is watching. Even when it feels like they're the only one still trying. But what drives that kind of persistence? What keeps someone moving forward when others have given up? For Capricorn, it's purpose. It's the vision they carry deep inside, a vision of a life that's not just impressive on the outside, but meaningful on the inside. And that vision isn't just about them. They want to create something lasting, not just for their own pride, but for the people they love, for the generations that come after, for the mark they'll leave behind when their name is no longer spoken. They don't want to be remembered for being loud. They want to be remembered for being true. That's why their ambition is so powerful. It's not just about climbing the ladder. It's about building the ladder themselves, so others can rise, too. And yet, through all that drive and determination, Capricorns never lose their sense of grounding. They don't get swept up in the fantasy of success. They stay practical. They stay focused. They understand that dreams need structure, otherwise, they're just illusions. It's this balance between dreaming big and thinking clearly that makes them rare. They know how to set a goal, and then actually build the path to reach it. They know how to delay gratification, to say no to distractions, to stay with something long after the excitement fades, because they believe in what they're doing. And that kind of belief? That doesn't come from ego. It comes from values, from integrity, from knowing that if you're going to live a life that matters, you have to earn it. This is why Capricorns become such powerful leaders. Not because they demand power, but because they live it. They lead by example. They inspire others just by showing what's possible when you stay the course. But here's something most people don't see. Behind all that strength, there's a heart that feels deeply. A soul that wants to be loved just as fiercely as it loves. Capricorn in love is different. They don't fall fast. They don't play games. They take their time. They build trust. And when they commit, it's all in. They approach relationships the way they approach everything else, with intention. They want something real, something stable, something that can last through the storms. And they're willing to work for it. Their love doesn't always look like flowers and poetry. Sometimes, it looks like fixing the car before you notice there's a problem. Or remembering how you take your coffee, even when you forget. Or standing beside you quietly when your world is falling apart, just so you don't have to face it alone. To some, that might not seem romantic. But to the ones who've felt it, it's everything. Capricorn teaches us that love isn't just emotion. It's action. It's showing up. It's building something that doesn't break when things get hard. And they bring that same energy to every area of life. When it comes to work, Capricorns don't just show up on time and do what's expected. They take pride in everything they do. They put their name on it, quietly, but with pride. Because to them, how you do anything is how you do everything. Even if no one sees the effort, they still give their best. Even if they're exhausted, they don't cut corners. Because they know that consistency is what builds trust. And trust is what builds success. They're the ones who stay late to finish the job. Who follow through on their promises. Who hold themselves to a higher standard, even when no one's holding them accountable. And that's not because they need praise. It's because they respect themselves too much to settle for less than their best. But don't confuse that work ethic with perfectionism. Capricorns don't need everything to be perfect. They just need it to be real. Honest. Solid. And when things go wrong, as they always do, they don't crumble. They learn. They adapt. They keep going. Their strength isn't in being flawless. It's in being faithful to the process, to their values, and to their vision. There's something else they do differently. Too, something that's becoming more rare in today's world. They know how to manage their resources. Their time. Their energy. And especially, their money. Capricorns are wise with what they earn. Not because they're obsessed with wealth, but because they value stability. They know that financial peace gives freedom. And they want that, not just for themselves, but for the people they love. They don't throw money at problems. They plan. They invest. They build slowly, patiently, with the long term in mind. And when they reach their financial goals, they don't flaunt it. They share it. They teach others. They support the ones who stood by them. Capricorn's relationship with money is deeply tied to self-worth. Not in a materialistic way, but in a responsible one. They believe that how you manage what you have reflects how much you respect yourself and your future. And maybe that's the greatest Capricorn lesson of all. Respect yourself. Not with empty words or surface confidence. But with action. With effort. With discipline. Because at the end of the day, it's not about the things you have. It's about the life you've built. And who you became while building it. Now, if you've come this far, you're already seeing how layered, how rich, and how deeply human the Capricorn spirit really is. But stay with me. Because in the next part of this journey, we'll explore 3 truths that reveal the most profound, and possibly most misunderstood, sides of Capricorn. And one of them might just challenge everything you thought you knew. Capricorn's way of seeing people is one of their most underrated gifts. They don't judge based on what someone says in a moment of charm. They pay attention to patterns. To actions. To how someone behaves when no one's looking. It's almost like they carry an internal compass that points directly to truth. You can't fake loyalty with them. You can't fake character. They'll see through it. Not always instantly, but steadily, over time. And once they've figured out who you really are, they never forget. This isn't about being cold or guarded. It's about protecting their peace. Because Capricorns don't have time for drama. They've got things to build. People to care for. A life to shape. So when they let someone into their inner circle, it means something. It means they trust you. And that trust, once given, is deep. They'll be loyal in ways that most people can't even name. They'll show up at 2 a.m. They'll help you move when no one else does. They'll support you when you're doubting yourself. Not because it's convenient, but because that's who they are. And maybe the most beautiful part? They don't expect applause for it. They do it quietly, without asking for credit. Because their loyalty isn't for show. It's a core part of their soul. But that deep loyalty means they also feel betrayal harder than most. They won't always show it. They won't explode. They might even smile and nod like everything's fine. But inside, a door has closed. And once a Capricorn closes that emotional door, it rarely reopens. That's the price of being deeply loyal. It cuts both ways. So if you're lucky enough to have a Capricorn in your life who still shows up, still listens, still chooses you, don't take it for granted. They've probably forgiven more than once. They've probably stayed when others would have walked away. And they've probably asked themselves, is this person still worth it? And decided, yes. That kind of loyalty is rare. And it deserves to be protected. Now, you might not expect this next truth about Capricorn. Because they often come across as serious, practical, and focused. And yes, they are. But what people often miss is their sense of humor. Capricorns are quietly funny. Not the loud, look at me kind of funny. But the dry, clever, did they just say that, kind of funny. Their humor sneaks up on you. It's subtle. Smart. Surprising. They're not trying to steal the spotlight. They're not cracking jokes just to fill silence. But when they speak up, they say something that cuts through the noise. Something that makes you laugh and think at the same time. And maybe that's why their humor hits so hard. Because it's not expected. It comes from someone you thought was always serious. And suddenly, you realize, there's this whole other layer to them. That moment when a Capricorn makes you laugh? It feels like a gift. Like you've been invited into a more personal part of who they are. And once you see that side, you'll never forget it. Because underneath the structure and discipline, there's warmth. There's playfulness. There's this beautiful contrast between control and chaos. And they're the master of balancing both. That's also why they're so good at helping others find clarity. Capricorns know how to bring order to confusion. When things are falling apart, emotionally, practically, or both, they're the ones who roll up their sleeves and say, okay. Let's fix this. They don't run from messes. They analyze them. Break them into manageable parts. Find a path forward. They're not overwhelmed by the chaos of life, because they've trained themselves to stay calm. They've taught themselves how to stay focused. And that training didn't come from books or lectures. It came from experience. From all the times life pushed them into hard situations, and they had to figure it out. So now, when someone else is spiraling, Capricorn becomes the steady ground. The planner. The one who says, I've got you. Let's take this one step at a time. In relationships, in work, in crisis, Capricorns are the people others turn to when things get real. Because they don't panic. They organize. They prioritize. They restore peace by restoring structure. Even when they're hurting inside, they'll find a way to make things work. Even when they're scared, they'll still lead. Because that's who they've become. Someone who brings calm into chaos, not by force, but by clarity. And that clarity isn't just for emergencies. It's how they live every day. They value systems. They create routines. They believe that structure isn't restriction, it's freedom. Because when you know where things belong, when your time has rhythm, when your goals have a map, you free up space. Space to breathe. Space to dream. Space to love. That's what Capricorn's organization is really about. It's not perfectionism. It's not control. It's care. It's a way of saying, my time matters. My energy matters. I want to create something I'm proud of. Think about the last time your space was a mess. The last time your schedule overwhelmed you. The last time your mind felt like it was spinning. Now imagine someone quietly stepping in and saying, let's put things back in place. Not with judgment. Not with pressure. But with presence. With purpose. That's Capricorn. They don't just clean up clutter. They clean up emotional chaos, too. They help others feel safe, not just in their homes, but in their hearts. And that's why people trust them. Why people lean on them. Why they're often the rock in every group, every family, every team. Because they've mastered the art of creating stability, in every sense of the word. But even with all that wisdom, all that steadiness, and all that clarity, there are still layers of Capricorn you haven't seen yet. Layers that go even deeper. Layers that might surprise you. Challenge you, maybe even change the way you see the world. In the final part of this journey, we'll uncover the last 3 truths. And they just might be the most personal, the most profound, and yes, the most misunderstood of all. Some people rush into things, chasing fast results and instant satisfaction. But Capricorns? They're built differently. They understand that anything meaningful in life takes time. And they're not afraid of waiting. Not because they're passive, but because they know the value of patience. Patience, for Capricorn, is a quiet strength. It's what helps them build relationships that last. Careers that evolve. Dreams that don't collapse under pressure. They don't expect things to happen overnight. They know it's the long game that matters. This isn't the kind of patience that waits around and hopes. It's active. It's grounded. It's the kind of patience that says, I trust the process, even when I can't see the results yet. And that trust doesn't come from luck or faith alone. It comes from experience. From trying, failing, adjusting, and trying again. Capricorn learns from life. Every step, every stumble. Every silence. In love, this patience shows up as deep emotional maturity. They don't rush feelings. They take the time to understand their partner. To learn their rhythm, their fears. Their dreams. They're not trying to impress. They're trying to connect, genuinely, and for the long haul. And because of this, their relationships grow slowly but solidly. They give it room to breathe. To evolve. To become something real. If you've ever been in a connection that felt safe, steady, and rooted in trust, you felt what Capricorn energy brings to love. They don't chase butterflies. They nurture foundations. In their work, this patience turns into vision. They don't just see where they are, they see where they're going. Even when it's years away. Even when no one else sees it yet. They do. And they hold that vision close. They move toward it step by step. No rush. No shortcuts. Just consistency and belief. This kind of long-term focus can be frustrating for people who live in the moment. But for Capricorn, it's empowering. Because they know what they're building is worth it. And they'd rather go slow and succeed than rush and lose it all. That's why, around them, you often feel more calm, more focused, more inspired to think long-term. They model what it looks like to believe in something bigger than the moment. And they don't just do it with words. They do it with actions. That's part of why people feel so drawn to Capricorn energy. It motivates without pushing. It inspires without shouting. It helps others rise, without making them feel small. Capricorns are natural motivators. Not because they have the loudest voice, but because they walk the talk. They live what they preach. They show up. They stay consistent. They keep going. Even when it's hard. And that energy? It spreads. When you're around someone who's committed, focused, and grounded, you start to believe you can be that way too. They won't hype you up with empty positivity. But they will remind you what you're capable of. They'll help you remember your own strength. They'll say things like, okay, it's hard, but you've done harder. You've got this. And you'll believe it because they've lived it. They'll help you set goals, break things down, create structure. And they'll be there, cheering you on, even if you stumble. Because for Capricorn, real motivation isn't about excitement. It's about resilience. It's about staying in the game even when it's not fun anymore. Even when no one's watching. Even when you're tired. And the reason they're so good at this is because they've lived it over and over again. They've stayed in the dark long before the light came. They've worked when others gave up. They've believed in things long before they were visible. And from that place, they lift others. Capricorn shows us that motivation isn't always loud. Sometimes, it's silent and steady. Sometimes, it's just not giving up. Sometimes, it's being the one person who still believes. And here's the thing, Capricorns don't just motivate others. They stay grounded while doing it. Their realism is powerful. They don't sugarcoat. They won't tell you what you want to hear. But they'll always tell you what you need to hear. They see things clearly, both the risks and the potential. And that balance keeps them anchored. They don't get swept away by hype or trends. They stay focused on what matters. This realism doesn't make them negative. It makes them prepared. It helps them make wise decisions. It keeps them from building castles in the air. They'll remind you to dream, yes. But they'll also ask you how you plan to make that dream real. What's the structure? What's the timeline? What's the next step? They remind us that dreams need feet. That emotions need direction. That goals need action. And that grounded mindset is what gives Capricorn their quiet power. They don't waste energy on what they can't control. They focus on what they can. And that focus creates results. In a world that often swings between toxic positivity and constant fear, Capricorn teaches us balance. To hope, but also to plan. To believe, but also to prepare. To act with heart, but also with logic. So if you've ever felt torn between dreaming big and staying safe, Capricorn shows you how to do both. How to reach upward with your feet still on the ground. And maybe that's the greatest gift they give us. The reminder that you don't have to choose between stability and growth. You can have both. You just have to be willing to work for it. And now, we've reached the final 3 truths. The deepest ones. The ones most people never see. Some of them might surprise you. Some of them might even challenge what you thought you knew about Capricorn. But I promise, they are the key to truly understanding this powerful, misunderstood, and beautifully complex sign. There's something about Capricorn that most people never realize. Something deep. Something powerful. And it's this: discipline, for them, isn't a burden. It's a form of freedom. While others may see structure as a cage, Capricorn sees it as a ladder. Every small habit. Every repeated choice. Every early morning or late night spent working towards something bigger. It's not just routine. It's self-respect in action. Discipline gives them peace. It keeps their mind clear. It brings order to the chaos that the world often throws their way. They've learned that when you choose discipline, you choose yourself. You choose your future. You choose not to be pulled in every direction by distractions or moods. And that power? It's not something they were born with. It's something they built. Through practice. Through pain. Through patience. Think of someone who wakes up every day and pushes forward. Even when it's hard. Even when no one claps for them. Even when they're tired. That's Capricorn energy. It's not about being perfect. It's about being present. It's about showing up for your goals, your growth, your people. And here's something else that makes them unforgettable. They're incredible friends. Not always the most outgoing. Not always the life of the party. But once they let you in, they're there for life. Capricorn doesn't rush into friendships. They observe. They take their time. They learn who you are. And if you pass that quiet test, you get something rare. You get someone who remembers the little things. Someone who texts you on your worst day without knowing why. Someone who will show up when it matters most. Not just when it's convenient. They won't always say the right thing. They might not be the most emotionally expressive. But they'll be real. And they'll be there. Even in silence, even in difficulty, they'll stay. And in today's world, that kind of loyalty is priceless. They're the kind of friend who believes in you when you've stopped believing in yourself. Who sees your potential when you can't? Who doesn't walk away when things get hard? Capricorns teach us that friendship is more than fun. It's presence. It's trust. It's showing up again and again, without needing to be asked. And when they love with their whole being. Quietly. Steadily. Completely. So if you have a Capricorn in your life, or if you see these traits in yourself, know this. You carry something extraordinary. A strength that doesn't scream. A loyalty that doesn't break. A purpose that doesn't fade. And that brings us to the end of our journey for today. We've walked through the mind, the heart, the soul of Capricorn. Not the surface-level traits you find in a quick horoscope, but the real layers. The ones you feel in your bones. The ones that stay with you. Capricorn isn't just about ambition. It's about quiet power. About building instead of boasting. Loving instead of chasing. And staying steady in a world that never stops shaking. If you saw yourself in these words, even just a little, then maybe this wasn't just a video. Maybe it was a mirror. And if it was, take a breath. Let it land. And remember, your strength doesn't need to be loud to be real. Your love doesn't need to be grand to be true. Your path doesn't need to be fast to be meaningful. If this touched you, helped you, or made you feel seen in any way, go ahead and subscribe. Or share this with someone who needs to hear it today. There's so much more to explore. So many signs. So many stories. So many truths about who we are and who we're becoming. And I'd love to walk that journey with you. One video at a time. See you in the next one.